Christ the King. Good evening to every one of you. So welcome to the part 2 of our learning. This evening I will be sharing with you, as we go through this, the stories of some people. I'll be giving you very detailed examples. I'll be sharing with you some very interesting episodes, and I wish to share them very honestly so that none of us is plagued, especially for those who are preparing for marriage. None of us is plagued or impeded by any of those stories. There are some images that we may come across as obscene, but they are meant to help us appreciate the topics or the issues we are discussing. I'm very much aware that what we are doing is also being recorded by way of audio, and so I would have to anticipate also those who listen to the audio later. I was only in my office somewhere on Thursday when a copy of what we had shared on Tuesday was sent to me. I'm told that you are on various platforms and these are shared so that others could also benefit. So we are on the part 2 of our exposition on the canon law and marriage. Last week we looked at what the canon law is, a quick background. We looked at when the canon law say what marriage is as a sacrament, what it should mean to us. We also looked at the essential properties of marriage: unity and indissolubility. We looked at the sources of that essential property, the intention, the 3 questions the priest asks you, also the consent, the vows you exchange, and the words that accompany the exchange of the rings. And then we looked at attitudes that would facilitate the marital union. And then finally we looked at the 4 stages of preparation: not only the remotes, not only the proximate or the immediate, but also even when we marry, we must have the opportunity of being groomed in this area. Now, for this week, what we are prepared to do today, these are the areas. We'll look at the things that can impede people from marrying. Those hurdles, those blocks on your path that may not allow you to marry. We'll also look at what would happen for people to be brought to the tribunal. So you have married, and all of a sudden we are told that the people want their marriage to be annulled. What would necessitate this? How does the tribunal work? What process does it go through? And then we'll end it with a very thorny issue of the place of religion, or the place of Christianity, if I'm allowed to use that, in marriage. So we'll look at these areas quickly, and then we would so an impediment is virtually a condition or a state or a fact that prevents you from marrying. Some have come across as emerging from divine law. Some have come, so they are biblically influenced. So for example, blood relations cannot marry. A son cannot marry the brother cannot marry the sister. A father cannot marry the daughter. These are blood relations. Sanguinis is from the Latin blood. So consanguinity only means that in union with or in company with blood relations. So those we cannot. We'll look at in a moment the issue of a prior bond. If you are, one man is to one woman, according to Christianity. We'll look at impotence. We'll look at all those things in a moment. Then we'll look at also those that come as a result of the church's own law. So there are issues of, say, a Catholic marrying a non-Catholic. Because we fear that you could be swayed from the Catholic faith, we dispense you, or we see certain conditions must be fulfilled before that is allowed. We have also the case of public propriety. This is where, let's say, a man is married and he has certain relationships with the wife's sisters or the wife's relatives. For the sake of public sanity, you would like to prevent all of these. So we'll look at some of them in a moment. Now, the very first one is that it is important that when you are married, you are mature. Maturity is a matter for marriage. It is not only maturity by way of age, but a certain maturity that makes you become responsible for the obligation you are assuming. Now, canon law serves the universal church. And so for a young man, you are expected. Elsewhere, people who are 16, they are like people who are 32 in Ghana. And elsewhere, a lady who is 14 years, her maturity, appreciation of things is not the same. However, because we are in Ghana, we move according to the laws of our state. And in our case, a man who has completed his 21st year is capable of marriage. And a woman who has completed his 18th year is capable of marriage under the laws of Ghana. I hope that is clear. Now, this issue with age is basically got to do with ability to appreciate and understand the role or the obligation you are assuming. But not only that, marriage comes with some physiological commitment. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. You must have a certain physiological strength to take up the responsibilities of marriage. We would appreciate that in a moment. So this is the reason why age is a matter. So anyone who falls below this boundary or this limit, you cannot marry. And that is why when those of you who have married, you remember before the priest, you were asked when you were born, you were asked how old are you, and all of that. We know that some have shown that they are old enough to marry, but probably not matured enough to marry. That is not what we are discussing today. We are looking at age as an impediment. Now, this is an area that we are going to spend some time. Impotence. Now, impotence has to do with, now we all know that the marital union comes with the obligation to be sexually committed. You must have some sexual obligations to your spouse. Now, the incapacity to engage in sexual intercourse is impotence. Now, the church doesn't chase after you to know whether you are impotent or not. We can't come and do that inspection. But it is for you to know. Because when you appear here on your wedding day, you are telling your spouse, the one you are committing yourself to, you are telling the principal witness, the priest, who is the principal witness of the church, you are telling your family members and your friends that I, who stand before the altar of God and make this commitment, is fully aware that I have the capacity for sexual intercourse in a manner that makes way for procreation. I hope we get the point. Hello? Christ the King. Okay, so now, so an impotent person is someone who cannot exercise this right. And you should know whether you are impotent or otherwise. Now, let's look at what constitutes impotence in men. For the man, the way to verify it is that you are unable to achieve erection. You are not capable of penetrating the vagina. And you cannot ejaculate. These are things known to ourselves. It's possible that the person doesn't have the penis. These are things we cannot go around and be checking. You should be able to know. So it is either you have an abnormally sized penis. If it is a medical doctor here, he should be able to explain to us. But I'm told that a normal penis should be about 4 inches long. You should be able to look for a ruler and measure, you know. Now, let's look at these examples or these areas, these 3 conditions that constitute what they call the psychic impotence. Your inability to attain and sustain erection. 2, excessive excitement when you are erect and you ejaculate prematurely. Now, this has implications for the sexual act. Because what happens is that you start the act with a woman, you have raised her hopes and anxiety that you are going to make this journey together. She's excited too, and in no time you are down. And the complaints of women is that it is a very terrible experience. It's interesting how a Catholic priest would have to be talking about this matter. But it happens. Now, there's also ejaculatory incompetence, where you are erect all right, but you never can ejaculate. Ejaculation means that you are able to spill your semen, your sperm. Now, let's look at what it is in the case of women, and then look at what is happening. Now, in the case of a woman, it could be the lack of a vagina. It could be artificial, it could be natural. Some are born with or without. Some have also had theirs, but artificially they have done some other things to themselves, and they are not looking any longer women in the true sense of their genital system. So that could constitute an artificial one. Now, it should be of a certain sufficient length and width to be able to receive the erect penis. What else? There's also functional impotence, and this condition by name vaginismus. It says it is a contraction of the pelvic floor. I want to believe it's the floor of the vagina in such a way that anytime it senses the approach of any object, it could be the penis, it contracts. It contracts in such a way that I'm told it's a condition. And this can also render you impotent because it doesn't make you allow in the penis. So what we are saying is that impotence is an impediment that prevents the enjoyment of the sexual act that makes way for procreation. Now the last one is the female genital mutilation. It has the capacity to render you impotent. For a very long time, many women suffered female genital mutilation in this country. There was a case where this doctor got married. Anytime it was time for them to make love, the woman said, "Let's have the lights off." The long and short of it is that the woman had a scar of female genital mutilation. According to the story, her labia minora was actually removed. Her clitoris was taken away. And this made sex a very painful experience for her. Medical examination showed that she was impotent. So, my dear brothers and sisters, these are things, if we know about ourselves, we should be able to. So, this is the system. This is the system we are talking about. The two of them must make way for the procreation, for procreation. First of all, the sexual act should be effected. In fact, that is the only way you consummate your marriage. Now, we should differentiate this whole idea of impotence from what we call sterility. Now, while sterility is more about procreation, impotence is about the sexual act, the human act of making love. Now, so sterility is about the incapacity for generation, for giving birth. So there are many people who are sterile before puberty, and women become sterile during their menopause. That does not invalidate marriage. There are people who are sterile yet can involved effectively in the sexual act, and so it means they are not impotent. I hope you are getting the picture. So impotence is about making way or enabling the sexual act. Sterility is about procreation. However, it is possible for people to know that they are sterile and hide that from their spouse and get married to them. It is for the church to determine whether in that instance there is a very substantial quality that was hidden from the elder spouse for which marriage consent was obtained. So it is for the tribunal to determine that. So this just to explain that what hinders the human act of generation constitutes impotence. What constitutes the natural process of generation constitutes sterility. I think we should differentiate between the two. Now, there is also a case where you have married before. Until the previous marriage is dissolved or annulled, you cannot marry. So there have been instances where, you are making investigations. Sometimes those of you who have married before, you may have remembered that you were asked whether you have had children before. If you have had a child before, we will have to probe what kind of relationship that was. And under our laws, you can marry traditionally or customarily. That's what we call the engagement. It's customary marriage. You can marry civilly in the courts. It is possible you have married sacramentally. But what needs to be done is that we must ascertain that you are no longer married. So if you have a previous bond, a form you have been married before, we should ascertain that you are no longer bonded. And it is only then can you, otherwise you cannot marry. Those of us who are priests, a bishop, the priest, the deacon are persons in holy orders. You have to choose one, you cannot choose the two. So, and three conditions must be satisfied here. The person must have been ordained, and those who are ordained are these: the bishop, the priest, and the deacon. They were ordained with full knowledge of what the obligations are. And finally, nothing affected that knowledge. They were not forced, they were not coerced, there was no fear inflicted upon them for which they made that choice. So if these are established, that person cannot marry. The same for the religious, those who are in perpetual vows, those who have made their final professions, they also cannot marry. I want to believe that those who are still in the process and not made their final can always leave. Sister, is that correct? They can always leave. Those who have not made their final vows yet, can they always walk away? They can always walk away. Yeah. So perpetual vows. That's why it's those who have made their perpetual vows of chastity cannot also marry. Now these are other impediments. It's not to say that they are in any way lower in rank to the others. But let me quickly explain them. The very first one is abduction. To kidnap someone or to adopt someone in order to go and marry the person, something will be lacking. Can anyone explain to me what will be lacking? Hello? Consent or the freedom to marry. So it means that this person is under some coercion to marry. So if you have abducted someone to go and marry, you cannot marry that person. Now also crime. If it is dictated or determined that you killed your spouse in order to marry another person, or you killed the spouse of another in order to marry her, or you conspired with someone to kill in order to marry, that also will not be, you cannot, if you are found culpable, you cannot marry. Now this was what I was talking about as public propriety, where a man begins to have some marital relationships with the blood relatives of the woman, or vice versa. It injures public conscience. Now we also have adoption. Like adoption, this is also an instance where so you have adopted someone, you have taken care of someone over the years, and the person feels that the only way to compensate for all that you have done is to offer herself, for you to marry. That also lacks freedom. That also lacks, the free consent. Then I spoke about blood relations. So consanguinity is about marriage between ancestors and their descendants. So a father and a daughter. So in this, the church limits it from up to the 4th degree. So to great grand children. So from one ancestor down the degree to the 4th direct line, the 4th degree. Affinity has to do with marriage between the husband and the blood relatives of the wife, or the marriage between the wife and the blood relatives of the man. These are not allowed. So the family would always be able to get this. Now let's quickly look at the grounds for which you can petition the tribunal for annulment. Now, the very first one has to do with lack of sufficient reason. And we should differentiate this with lack of due discretion. While reason has to do with the intellect, your ability to understand, your ability to appreciate the obligations you have assumed, that of discretion has to do with how you conduct yourself willingly within the marriage, to demonstrate that you have an appreciation for the other's strengths and weaknesses, an appreciation of your own, and your ability to make prudent judgments. Let me give you an example. We all have heat moments. We all can get angry. But imagine what takes place here on your wedding day. And imagine the two, one of them decides on one nice evening to pull a gun. To pull a gun. Dare me and I'll shoot you. Last week we examined the words we exchanged here and compared that to that act. Or those who have left some marks. When I say marks, wounds, physical wounds. Those who have slapped their spouses. You could not control yourself so much that you could slap your spouse. You could kick her. You could say terrible things to her. Think about it. Think about it. Now, the church has a way of, if you can treat your spouse like that, and it has been very consistent, to the extent that family has even intervened and called for calm, and you think that your violent nature must prevail. The church would say that having assessed all your conduct in totality, what you did here that day, you never meant it. Hello? Are we learning, please? Okay. If you are not learning, you have to say it too. Now, there's also the inability to assume the essential obligations of marriage. So the first two, the use of the insufficient use of reason, the lack of discretion, has to do with your posturing in the marriage, the way you conduct yourself in the marriage. Now this one has, because you remember on the last week we said that marriage is purpose for two things: for the good of the spouses. Now, if you conduct yourself in the marriage that does not promote the good of your spouse in the way you conducted yourself, the church will say, if putting all of this together, you didn't mean to marry. You probably didn't even understand what marriage is about. You forgot that you were dealing with someone who was coming from a different background and you were coming from a different background. And you could not use yourself as a yardstick. Say, do it the way I like. You have forgotten that she is your equal, he is your equal, and you must appreciate and meet yourself as a certain point. Now, this part has to do with the likes of what we have looked at earlier. So your inability to be sexually committed. So you are impotent. Now, I said that I was going to spend some time with the issue of impotence. Now, please, from my experience as a priest, when couples have issues with sex and love making, they don't go out to tell anyone. Hello. When our couples have issues with their inability to satisfy themselves sexually, I'm not talking about the number of times you have sex in a week. No. So in one act, who does it satisfy? Is it a man who is ready to jump on the woman and have himself okayed and is fine, and the woman is now finding her feet and trying to understand whether it was a movie or it was a, the other one, comedies. Whether it was, please, things are happening. And how I wish that sometimes we can sit as a family, when I say family, as a church, to see how we can address talking about these things. And I do it when I have the two before me in their last days of marriage. Before marriage, I will address the matter. We'll talk about it, because you cannot take it for granted. Look, if the bedroom is not a place you are enjoying, in fact, if you are not enjoying yourselves as a couple in bed, please, you have issues. I've been teasing the men that sometimes it can affect the quantity of food that is served on your plate. You will not come to us because in your mind, father is not supposed to be having sex, so how can we go and discuss our issues with him? That is fine, but we need help. Talk to your counselor. Talk to the people you can rely on. Every one of you who are married, you deserve attention. You deserve to be treated well. So we cannot take this matter for granted. It is an area of our life as couples that we have always set aside. We have had people appear before us in the tribunal, and they have told their story. You realize that there's no case. You probably have to talk or ask. If you are lucky, you get what they are saying. Otherwise, you all be there and be looking at each other's eyes. So please, we need to be serious about this matter. Now, there are emerging areas that are creating problems. Alcohol dependence. So you want to go to bed with your woman, but the smell of your breath, the aroma of your breath, Charlie, the other person is also a human being. Some people abuse substance. Some people are also adopting various ways of having sex. We just saw the genitals. The anus is not part of it. The human anus is not part of it. But people think that another way to have sex is to dodge the vagina and insert the penis into the anus. And when your spouse says, I can't do this, that is a crime. Now, the other area which is also a thorny issue in marriage is also because you are not satisfying your woman, and normally it's the women who suffer. Because, you see, the woman and the man don't have the same sexual inclinations. This is how one writer puts it. He says, the man is like a gas cooker. The man is like a gas cooker. You set fire and it lights. But the woman is like an electric cooker. It heats gradually. So the two of you must have a way of meeting at a common temperature so that you can climb together. You can climax together. At the time the woman is reaching her climax, the man is also ejaculating. I mean, that is how it should be. But before the woman is lighting up and you have reached boiling point, when it happens like that, your woman will not be, anytime you invite her for that act, she will not be committed. She will not mind you, because she is dreading to go through that that whole experience again. So it's becoming a critical issue in marriages. Now, error of a person or error of the quality of a person. So let's just say that this person showed himself as of a certain quality, and some of them could be that the person is, so for example, you marry someone who knew at the time of the marriage, he knew that he was an HIV AIDS patient. He looked good, very appetizing, but that was not known to you. That is error of a certain substantive quality. The person claims to be, of a certain profession, or sometimes they are married. They have been married before, but maybe they married. Who are the teams playing this evening? They married in France, and then they came to Ghana. Nobody knows about the relationship in France, and then they are here. They have come to marry, but the person says, "Oh, I've never married before." These things are very, very frequent. So the person has a certain record of crime. The person has been previously imprisoned, or has a certain background, or pretends to be of a certain religious profession. If this is unknown to you at the time of the marriage, you can move on that ground. Now, this is also another serious area, and lawyers will tell you that fraud vitiates everything. If you obtain something fraudulently and you are found, it doesn't make any point. I mean, those who went to the university fraudulently using some other people's certificate, or those, even in marriage. So these conditions must be satisfied, that the fraud was deliberately perpetrated in order to get married to this person. Deliberate. Number two, that it must be real. So not all things. If, let's say, let me give a very funny example. Let's say I like to bite my fingers. And you saw me one day, you say, you like to bite your fingers. So I don't bite my fingers. Then you hid it. And you got married and you realize that, I'm someone who bits my fingers. That is not fraud. It has nothing. This is not grave. It's not a grave matter. It has nothing to do with marriage. The beating of my fingers has nothing, even though it's a matter for courtesy, but that's a very... So it must be real, it must be grave, it must be present or absent at the time when the consent of marriage was given. Number three, it should be a quality that is unknown to the other party at the time when the consent was given. And then finally, it should be in a way that when it is discovered, the marriage must come to an end. So fraud is part of it. Then we have people who have married, and then the next week or two they are traveling and they have still not come back. Yes, we have several of them. Very recently, some 2 weeks ago, I had a case like that. The person got married, left after a month, and it's been 5 years now. And this is just one of those, sometimes more years. The people whose number you knew, now you call them and the woman says that the phone number you have called is out of coverage area. So these are real, so it only means that the person married you and left you and abandoned you. In fact, it is encouraged, highly encouraged, that when you marry, you must live together. And our dear parents, our dear in-laws, when we are living together, don't be looking into our affairs too much. Allow us to be. So this person chose to exclude perpetuity. And we remember, when we looked at the essential properties of marriage, we said for unity and indissolubility, for life, a partnership for life. So those who can abandon home, and those who can abandon home and go and settle somewhere else. We know job or school or some other commitment can take you away from home, but make sure or encourage your constant meeting. Be able to meet as often as possible or make time for each other. We know there are spouses who live in different areas of Ghana, but as much as possible they meet. But if you are gone, they are calling you, you are not minding them. By the time they realize you have formed a photocopy of your family somewhere, we should be concerned. Now, also great fear and force normally coerce people. And you remember the very first question the priest will ask you, have you come here freely and without reservation? And if you think that you have been forced to come, your father dragged you along the aisle to this place. Oh, Father, I was dragged here, so I can't be free for this man. Then we can close early and go home. Maybe you can finish the party, but there was no marriage. It's possible. Then there's this area also, and this is no small area. I think the last time I spoke about emotional infidelity, but this is how it begins. So this concerns those spouses who have the tendency to be polygamous. So they are here today, they are for another man tomorrow, and all of that. Now, it will interest you to know that things happen. And my dear parents, my dear family, my dear brothers and sisters, I think we should not think that we will not be caught. There was an instance where on their wedding day, before the woman slept with the wedded man, he had had sex with somebody else that same day. I'm not fabricating a story. It's strange. She slept with someone else. So in the midst of the, I don't do that kind of thing, something happened. She slept with another man. Now, investigations show that this was his former boyfriend. So while they were courting, there was an aside relationship. And so even on the wedding day, it happened. Please, these are not too far away from us. It can be strange, but it is happening. So, before the court will say that we are granting annulment based on this ground, first of all, there must be some indication that maybe before they came to be, there were those tendencies and they persisted within the marriage. Or the knowledge of this person's infidelity is so notorious, it's so known to everyone that it cannot be denied. And these are things we know. The side chicks in the office and the small bosses we know. So please, we cannot. Now, so we have looked at the grounds. We are in the tribunal now. The first thing you do is that you submit your petition based on the grounds. Normally, a ground or two suffices. You must build your story strongly on those grounds. Now, normally before the case gets to the tribunal, it would have been taken care of in our courts before it gets to the tribunal. So the courts would have granted divorce, that this marriage is beyond reconciliation. It has broken down beyond reconciliation, and so we cannot do much about it. So they would have granted a petition for divorce before it comes to the tribunal, because the declaration of the tribunal is that there has never been a marriage. All that was done previously, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, for the period, was no marriage. Nothing happened. They were never committed to marry. You must also come with, at least, you must have 2 strong witnesses, and they must corroborate your case. They must, don't coach them. They must know your marriage story the way you know it. Sometimes they know, because you may have gone to share with family for them to intervene, and they would have known the full case. If you coach them and they come, there are questions we'll ask. The same question we ask, when we ask them, they will not be able to answer. So you may not be building your case strongly. Then the officials would have taken up the matter. So in the tribunal are 5 officials. We have the notary, we have the advocate, we have the defender of the bond, we have the judge, and we have the diocesan bishop. Hitherto, the diocesan bishop was not part, but just 2 years ago, to facilitate the case, before somewhere until 2016, if you take your case to the tribunal, the list will be about 2 years. But now, by 3 to 6 months, you should be out. For as long as you have a good case, you would have had your case. So, the officials I just mentioned would have looked at your case, and then the decision is given by the judge. And if you are not happy with the decision, you can appeal. You can appeal. In the case in Ghana until 2016, the appeal system was like this. Accra appealed to Cape Coast. Cape Coast appealed to Tamale, and Tamale appealed to Kumasi, and Kumasi appealed to Accra. So that's how it is, quite cyclic. So, but now things are different. Now, so these are the officials. The notary is like the one who receives your petition and receives your petition and the testimonies of your witnesses. So that's the work of the notary. So prepares the petition or what you have brought and hands it over to your lawyer. So the tribunal will give you a lawyer, and that lawyer is your advocate. Now, then the defender of the bond would establish to the judge the grounds for which this annulment or this the conditions on which this should be granted or should not be granted. So he's a defender of the bond. So he says that, okay, you want to proceed on this ground. These are the conditions for which this ground will be, for which marriage will be annulled on this ground, or these are the conditions for which it will not be granted. So he defends the marital bond. That's how it is called. And then the judge would give a decision, and now the decision is normally finally determined by the diocesan bishop, which means that everything is done within and fast-tracked, So that was what. Now, there have been certain instances where, because some of the cases belong to a certain profession or of a particular nature, we engage the assistance of those we call expert witnesses. Expert witnesses could be a doctor. It could be a professional of maybe a lawyer. It could be so in this case, the woman who had the issue of the female genital mutilation, we needed the assistance of a medical doctor to be able to tell us the extent to which the female genital mutilation could cause impotence in a woman. So these are also engaged. Now we come to the last stage, which is the issue of why we are so protective of the Catholic partner when it comes to marriage. Now, the church has always accompanied her own from the very day they were born to the very day they will die. And the church insists that they will be loyal and faithful to the faith of the church. Now, it is the obligation of the church members to remain faithful to the faith, so that even when they marry, they will not depart from, because after a while, why will you marry and then abandon your faith? But because it is possible to get married to a non-Catholic partner, it is encouraged that the church would help that person appreciate what marriage, and that's why it is highly encouraged that when you have found someone, you let the church give you the true understanding or appreciation of what Catholic marriage is. We never dispense from the canonical form. The canonical form is what we went through last week: the intentions, the consent, and the rings. Now, to ensure that the Catholic Church insulates the loyalty of her members, the Catholic partner is always encouraged to reaffirm her commitment to remain faithful to her faith even when she marries. And then a non-Catholic partner is informed of the Catholic partner's commitment. Now, no one has ever forced any non-Catholic to become Catholic on their wedding day. Please, I think we should make this point very clear. No one is forcing any non-Catholic to become Catholic. We have trained our own. We have groomed our own. The church protects her own. We are saying that because she belongs to us or he belongs to us, whoever comes to marry her must learn to appreciate what marriage is in her church, so that you help her remain Catholic and grow and mature in that faith. So we only remind you that this is the commitment of the Catholic partner, and we inform you, the non-Catholic partner, of this commitment. No one has forced anyone to be Catholic. Now, ordinarily, this shouldn't be an issue. The marriage between a Catholic and a non-Catholic should not be an issue. But we have observed that people marry our own, and they marry and uproot them from our church and carry them to theirs. I don't think it is fair. Under the Constitution of Ghana, it says that everyone has the right to religious freedom. This is my church. You have found me here. When I get married, where is it written that I should follow you to your church? There have been this argument that the woman must follow the man to his church. Please, we should find where it is written so that we all can know. So please, I think we should learn to appreciate these things. Now, I have argued. So this is the form. These are the form that they will fill. The form, the dispensation form that permits a Catholic to marry a non-Catholic. This is the form. So the Catholic partner will say, I, Adjoa Mansa, reaffirm my faith in Jesus Christ, and with God's help, intend to continue living that faith in the Roman Catholic Church. I promise to do my best to share the faith I have received with our children by having them baptized and raised as Roman Catholic. I think this is the part that they don't like at all. I say I'll do my best. That one, it will be on the mutual decision of the two of you. I remember in one of the counseling, I was heckled. They virtually, Father, you are not being fair to us. What is the meaning of this? We have not said you will be Catholic, because it is just fair. I have always argued this way, that if the Lord says we should go out and make disciples of all nations, and you parents are to make disciples also, who must be your immediate disciples? Who? So are we being unfair? That it is just nice that your children are also raised. If you say your children should not be raised, we will not chase after, and the Catholic will only encourage, because you have an obligation to the church, you have a loyalty to the church, and you must serve that. Now, what do we tell the non-Catholic partner to do? I, Kofi Mensah, do hereby verify that I have been duly informed of the promises of my Catholic partner, of the promises my Catholic partner has made, so that I am truly aware of the promises and obligations of my future Catholic partner. You have only been informed and a sign. And this one too, it is, and people, some of our people have been frightened. Say, oh, when you do that, you please. Now, this is my point, and that's the last slide. While it is generally recommended that a Catholic may marry a Catholic, difference in religion should not prevent a genuine and a true commitment to love and companionship between a Catholic and a non-Catholic partner. For me, the Catholic partner must give or demonstrate keen reason. Give your non-Catholic partner a reason why he must be Catholic. I think it is a fair comment to end the session with. Thank you. Please, questions so that we can. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Father. My question is, in the case where a marriage has gone through annulment and both parties decide that you want to continue with the marriage, what rite must be performed? Do they have to do a whole marriage ceremony again? Or, yeah.
So by annulment, the church has declared that there has never been a marriage between the two of them. That is what annulment means. There has never been married. Now, if the two have found greener pastures for which they have intended to start afresh, the church will start afresh with them. You get the point? Yes, so that is how it is. So they will be made to go through counseling. In fact, on this particular one, you know, they would have to be given a bit of a thorough screening. When I say screening, because something might have triggered what happened earlier. We should be able to investigate what has turned them on differently for which they are making this new commitment. So this second preparation, and to be very sincere with you, many who have come before the tribunal had admitted that their preparation was not the best. So if the church has become more aware and is encouraging more comprehensive, rigorous preparation, it is for the good of the experiences we have gathered over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. To begin with, I wish the church should have allowed the priests to marry so that you will experience the reality of man and woman unity. Because the human being is a very difficult thing to understand. Very difficult.
Let me inform you that I like where I am.
Anyway, that's just for experience. I wanted you to get it.
But I appreciate what you are saying.
Yes. Yeah. In the case of a couple that could not control their anger, and then one other go to the extent of showing a gun or a knife, and then the other report the kids and is moved for annulment. And later, if a medical check is done on the partner and realize that probably the person has a mental issue, how about that?
So some of the cases have demonstrated that some of these people who could not exercise sufficient use of reason in the marriage have psychic challenges. You see, look, it is not all of us who are able to drive to work and come and, that are very normal. No. I mean, when married people share with you the conduct or the behavior of their spouses, you ask whether do you mean what you are saying, or you are just saying it for saying. And my brother, I think that was the point you wanted to make. That, Father, you should be married to understand, to have a feel, to have a feel of what your fellow human being can do to you. It's interesting, and I don't think we want to say that we don't know, and that is why one would have appreciated that we have a bigger platform to share some of these things. I'm doing these things because, look, I remember there was I was in the tribunal working when I had to prepare a couple, and I intentionally asked them to come and meet me in the tribunal. And the very first thing I told them was that you should never come here. And you should never come here. I mean, that was about the third couple. Some couples have come and said, Father, I want my marriage to be annulled. I said, please, go back. It's better you go back. and shape up what you have, then it's not a very interesting experience at all. You not enjoy it. So, my brother, we have mental cases. It's not, if all of us have to go to the psychiatric hospital, it should have to be expanded. So, but we need to help one another. And helping one another also means that the other spouse must acknowledge that I need help. So it's you must be ready to be helped, and the other spouse, must also help. Yes, I see a hand. Let's listen to our dear sister.
Father, please, I wanted to find out if the church charge for annulment, just like when you go to the court. And secondly, the issue of impotence. Father, do you have to finish with the wedding, then you go, and then you realize that the thing is not working? Father, or do you expect the individual to tell you that I'm impotent? No. So, Father, what do? You have to test.
You see, the church, I will not say that the church takes a lot for granted. And I believe that this has been the argument for many people, especially for young men and sometimes young women, to say that if I have to be sure, then let's collapse, our chastity before, But again, now let's get it clear. When you come here on your wedding day, when you present yourself, is to you are virtually telling everybody that I have the capacity to assume the obligations of marriage, and I have the capacity to be sexually committed. And that is why it will be too strange for someone to be impotent and pretend not to know, because we have showed a lot of indicators that should let you know by now whether if you are here and you are within the circle of potency or impotence. You should know. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Even as a priest, you cannot be impotent. No, you cannot be impotent. We all have experienced the physiological, growth we have within us. You know when you are up, you know when you are erect, and all of that. We cannot belittle this matter. So, my sister, I appreciate the point. But the man who is getting committed to you should be able to look into your eyes and tell you that I am not impotent. And if you are, you should be able to say, I cannot marry you because I don't have what it takes to be committed fully. We should be honest with ourselves. We should be, because you see, when you come before, when you are making those vows, I, Kofi Mensah, take you, Adwa Mansa, to be my wife. To be my wife, it means I'll be your husband. I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health. I will love you and honor you. Hey, and you are impotent and you are saying all of this. Hey. Yes. Say again. Yes, yes. So there's a token to be paid for the process. It is nothing that you cannot bear. Okay, you can bear it. So, I think for a start you pay 200. You pay 200 to start the process, and then when they finish, they give you a bill. But it's not something that is beyond you. Yeah. At the moment, that is what I know. Yes.
Thank you very much, Father. I really appreciate you coming around to take us through this. Very important. Honestly, I would like to suggest that honestly, this is sometimes a dispensation that the church gives. That will say that the couple, their due to their work schedule and other things and stuff like that. Honestly, that is one of the most serious things that is causing marriages in the Catholic Church. Sometimes, because during the counseling, we said that this they just flew out from outside and came and ABC. I'm speaking for a very serious experience. Look, one might be committed, knows how to stay within the bargain, but somebody the spouse will now be the one who would end up ruin the whole thing. Also, to just something small, for my brother, to say that a priest need to be allowed to be allowed to be married, to get married before you be experienced. Excuse me, what of medical doctors? The number of years our Catholic priests take to train before they become priests, we should thank God for that. Not like the other churches. Look, a medical doctor never get the chance doing this training to operate a human being. It's just the corpses they work on, but when they come out, they're able to deal with live corpses. Is that understood? It's just about the grace of God that things things go on. If you're able to stay and listen and obey all what is in the your marriage will come out rightly. You don't need to do all this test and try and error. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to our aid. No, but I know my brother was making a point. He wanted to make the point that, Father, it would have been different if you were on this side, that's just to, Yes. My brother.
Yeah, Father, I just want you to reconcile this situation. You just said that if the person is sterile, that one cannot be grounds. You pity the person for.
Sterility is not impotence.
It's not impotence.
Yes.
How about, let's say, one of the spouses is not open for children? Can that marriage still go on?
No. You cannot marry and not be open for children.
Then, so, by sterility too cannot give children.
No.
So why do you allow that?
No.
Not the church.
So, in fact, I wanted to quote two persons in the Bible. Hannah and Elizabeth. Hannah, the mother of Samuel, and Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist. The Bible makes us believe that they were sterile. But it is not the case that they could not have sex. Because finally, Samuel was born. Finally, John the Baptist was born. So you get a point. You get the point. So a sterile woman can make love, can satisfy his man and all of that, but may not be able to bear children. Say again. You like that one? But so I think that, in fact, there was a Canon 11:25. When I saw this, I needed to clarify it myself. Let me quickly read it for. So this 1084, 1125 is something else. 1084, it says, by reason of its very nature, marriage is invalidated by antecedent and perpetual impotence to have sexual intercourse, whether on the part of the man or on that of the woman, whether absolute or relatives. Without prejudice to Canon 1098, sterility neither forbids or invalidates marriage. So, someone who is capable of performing the sexual act satisfactorily and is sterile can marry. You get the point? What the act, there's a difference between the act, the human act of making love, which is sexual intercourse, and the natural process of giving birth. That one, the process of fertilization, is this the man who is in charge? Are we in charge? Is the natural process that takes care of itself. So fertilization and the meeting of the sperm and the ovary, those are things that take place naturally. It is not us. So you get the point. Good. Yes. How will you even know?
Oh, but I mean.
No, you have never given birth before. It is about the act of conception and generation. You get the point, Ma? You get the point. You get the point. You get the difference.
Have low sperm counts, and then you go in to marry and not disclose to your spouse who may want to have children. That would be tantamount to
we know that sperm counts can be clinically corrected. We know that. Can the person ejaculate? Yes. Is it for us to determine whether the semen, the sperm, the spermatozoa can fertilize the egg of a woman? Is it for us to determine? No. It's a very thin line, but we should be able to differentiate. Can the person ejaculate, erect, ejaculate, make love? Yes. Can the person's sperm does the person's sperm has the capacity to fertilize an egg? Hey, now this one too, we can, otherwise then we should start. In fact, we are saying that, and we know that God has manifested. In fact, that is why the third question is very important. Will you accept children lovingly from God and bring them up according to the law of the church, the law of Christ and the church? Will you accept? So it is to say that it is God who gives children. And that is why last week I repeated here that when children are not forthcoming in the marriage has not failed. I said it. Otherwise, we are saying that marriages without children are invalid. Otherwise, that's what we are saying. There's a hand up here. There are two hands.
Yes, Father, thank you very much for this opportunity. But I'm thinking we should look at it at the other way too. There are men who cannot have firm erection, who cannot have sustained sex for a long time, but can produce children.
I never said long time.
No. Maybe you are not understanding me. Maybe I overstressed what I wanted to say. But what I'm saying is, there are men, as soon as they insert their penis, they ejaculate.
Yes.
It has been proven clinically.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So if such a man cannot satisfy a woman, yet have a high sperm count, and can make a woman pregnant and procreate, we should look at that aspect.
Oh, I don't think I've disputed that point.
No, it's all about impotence. And by the definition of impotence that you gave, I think it's this one also.
We give indications of potential impotence.
I think I read, and you further elaborated, you illustrated, setting the example that a man is like the gas cooker, whereas the woman is like the electric cooker, and that the two.
I was only illustrating.
Anyway.
I mean, not in doing this. It is a very, I must say, it's a very difficult area. How I wish we had experts in human sexuality discuss some of these things with us. But I'm only making the point that there are indications. I mean, for as long as you are able to ejaculate, erect, I wouldn't. In fact, I know there are men who are weak. I know that, but I know that these are capable of fertilizing the eggs of their women. I know that, but the point we are saying is that, and I think we indicated that there are those indicators that show that men can be impotent, and these are the ones we have demonstrated. And I like the explanations you are giving. Now, what we have shared here may not be applicable to all cases. There may be exceptions, and the woman in the instant case may enjoy what she has. You understand? So I would not say that you are wrong, but we only want to make the point that these are indicators we could look out for. And it's possible there are men who may not even appreciate that they are impotent. And these are things we should. And to quickly add, I'll beg us, especially our married couples, please, when you have indications of these in your marriage, don't be quick to go and tell everybody about it. Protect each other. If your man has to be clinically taken care of and boosted in order to take care of you, please keep these matters to yourself. Don't go and display elsewhere that, even my man is going through, that those talking issues. Don't go and do that. You only be exposing the vulnerability of your own marriage. So these are things we should not forget. My sister, you hand yours.
Thank you, Father. I don't know. I don't really have a question, but a few contributions. In fact, was it yesterday we were just having a discussion, and one of my colleagues just mentioned, like you said, about the infidelity. A day before the Friday night, before the Saturday, this gentleman who was going to be wedded went out with another lady. They went out, had fun. He even spent the night with the lady, and then the next morning he wedded someone else. And we who just heard it were heartbroken, and he told us that the lady is just completely down. These are things that happen in our lives, and we as women should note it. Sometimes, for ignorance of all of us, the gentlemen are thinking, I am taking you for granted, or maybe sexual act itself is taking as a kind of strength or power over the woman, and that is what maybe he wants to do, that to pay back for something he felt done wrongly to him, and we must be careful about that. And then the other thing, I'm thinking, if our priest must not be married to know what our issues are. Otherwise, professionals who engage in their professional duties do not encounter all the issues that come to them before they are able to give solutions to them. A lawyer might not himself have been in a divorce case before he knows what it is. Or a doctor must not have had diabetes before he can treat diabetes. So this does not really make our priest incapable of really taking care of marriage issues. The other thing about, I think, the 9 weeks we had with Father Prince, we get to realize that the marital union is a serious thing. It is so religious. It's not just an act. It is a prayer, and that prayer must be complete. So we all know that if you kneel down and you are praying and you don't say amen and you don't do your sign of the cross, you have not finished your prayer. And therefore, if you are having that prayer with your spouse, it must be complete. And if it is complete, it means that both of you have had the joy of enjoying your prayer. And whether it is producing anything or anything, because that is not your part to do, that prayer itself might be helping somebody in Zimbabwe somewhere, because you are having a complete prayer. When we say amen, when we take communion, it means that we are coming in common union with the Lord, and you have accepted, Lord, I have accepted you, and that union with the Lord. And that common union is what is the sexual union we have, which is very serious. And that is why the impotence aspect that you emphasize is very, very important. You might be able to you can't do much, but that sperm might produce a child. But have you ever seen a woman who has not been satisfied sexually in the morning, the face before? If you see her face, she is never happy. She is never strong. It is not her fault. It is just nature. Once that satisfaction has not come, she is down completely. And so you cannot take that for granted, because even that pregnancy, she might not even carry it happily, because she is not having that satisfaction that brings about that. So it is very, very important. Thank you very much, Father.
I think that is a good one to add. I think one or two you want to ask to. I think it's that's a matter for medicine. I cannot make a pronouncement on that. Yeah. I would like to say thank you to all of you for giving me the chance to do this with you. It's been a lot of learning and revision for me as well. We should do this often. And you see, this is about our faith. I've seen older people here who have been very patient, have paid attention and listened to all of these. I've seen younger people here who would also listen. I've seen people who are preparing for marriage and all of that. I believe that we want to take advantage of these teachings to help ourselves, because you see, the reason I told you last week that the church devotes 110 canons to marriage. Is the subject matter in the canon law that has the most provisions. It only tells you that this is what gives birth to the church. It's marriage that gives birth to family, the cell unit of the church. So we'd like to thank you, and we hope that all that we have shared, we will share it with our friends, that the unions that are upcoming, those that have already been celebrated, would live up to expectation. Thank you for your attention.
Father Wisdom, I also use this opportunity to thank you for making time to be here. I am really grateful to you for accepting to come these 2 weeks to talk to us about the canon law and marriage. God bless you. Thank you. And thank you all too for coming. Let us encourage others to also come. We have wonderful topics this month. It's about marriage. Let us invite others so that we can drink and learn deep from the traditions of the church. Thank you. God bless us all.
The Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Thank you and good night.